Hello, welcome to the Duquesne Dukes Hockey Pregame Show. My name's Brendan Flato. This is Jack Morgan. We're looking forward to a big game against Robert Morris this Sunday, 1:20 p.m. Let's quickly talk about last week's game. So on Saturday, it was a big win over Mercyhurst, 4-2 for the Dukes. It's really helping them in the playoff push. And then Sunday, it was a 10-1 loss to West Virginia. West Virginia's been a tough opponent for Duquesne. We've seen them defeat Duquesne twice this year. But, Jack, I want to talk a little bit more about that Mercyhurst game and kind of the playoff implications of it all.
Yeah, absolutely, Brendan. It's massive. You don't want to drop a game like that, especially to a team like Mercyhurst, who has not won a game in conference play. They are severely struggling right now, and especially at home at the Alpha Ice Complex, you want to make sure you are able to take care of business at home, kind of a theme that we're going to be touching on here with the Robert Morris game we're previewing up on Sunday.
Yeah, and during that Mercyhurst game, myself and Will McDonald, who was calling the game with me, we talked a lot about how that game is important for both teams, probably a little bit more for Mercyhurst because they need that win to pretty much stay in the CHMA playoff spot. But for Duquesne, you can really solidify your spot in that playoff with the win against Mercyhurst. And Mercyhurst came out ready to play. We said that the physicality was going to play a big part in it. Mercyhurst brought the physicality in the first. Duquesne was a little bit slow to respond, but then once they did, they were able to put Mercyhurst away and really solidify their chances to make another CHMA playoffs this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It would take pretty much nothing short of a miracle for Mercyhurst to be able to even jump in that playoff spot, and they do have that game in hand, but Duquesne has just about wrapped that one up. There's not really a thought about them blowing that spot because it wouldn't take just them blowing it. It would take Mercyhurst playing hockey that, quite frankly, has not been shown all year. But Duquesne has showed it in flashes, and when we talk about the playoffs and when we do get to that bracket, when you look at it, I think ironically my first thought is that the teams that they are playing in that first round of games, they feel like the tougher opponents as opposed to the two teams that got the bye with how Duquesne has played against them.
Yeah, we're going to get to the playoff bracket later in this show. But, yeah, I mean, Duquesne has played really well against the top teams. It's the teams in the middle that have given them some trouble. We're going to move on here, though. So this matchup versus RMU is the Teddy Bear Toss game in honor of Sean Maloney, who was a former goaltender coach for Duquesne. In 2024, goaltender coach Sean Maloney passed away at the age of 53. Maloney spent 5 years as Duquesne's goalie coach, leading the position through his declining health with remarkable resilience. Born in St. Catharines, Ontario, he moved to Pittsburgh as a child, began playing goalie early, and later competed in junior hockey in Canada. His coaching career spanned decades, including his work with NHL goaltenders and an instructional book on the position, which he wrote. In a 2024 interview with the Duquesne Duke, head coach Conrad Waite called Maloney's influence immeasurable, crediting him as the team's longest tenured assistant and a pillar of stability. Maloney joined Duquesne in February 2018. He became the program's lead recruiter for goaltenders, including former Duke Robbie Halema, who said that Maloney saw potential in him that he didn't see in himself. Former captain Matt Dorman recalled how he transformed an undersized goalie Alex Nervi into a starter who helped push the team into the playoffs. In 2006, Maloney was diagnosed with Stevens-Johnson syndrome and was given only a few years to live. Over his time, he lost a toe, then a foot, and eventually his leg, yet he kept coaching on the ice, through film work, and finally over the phone from a nursing facility. Today, Duquesne will host a teddy bear toss game in his honor. Fans are encouraged to toss a teddy bear onto the ice after the team's first goal, with all bears being donated in his memory. As former captain Matt Doman put it, he was one of one. So, Jack, you actually have been with the Duquesne hockey team since your freshman year. What was your experience knowing Coach Maloney?
See, I was one of those that, unironically, I did not get to talk to him for lengthy periods of time when I was with Duquesne for a couple of years. However, when you hear the stories about him, they're all true. When you look at Robbie Haleyama and how much he progressed as a goalie, that's a testament to guys that are around the system helping him become a better goalie. And I know if we were to talk to him right now, he would attest to that and have very high praise for Maloney amongst a lot of the guys who last year, when they heard this news, it was pretty devastating. You heard a lot of really powerful and touching remarks from from them on Maloney. And all I do know is that with any interaction I had with him, he was a very nice guy. And yes, he was around that team even when he had only a few years left to live. He was still around the team every single game. I saw him every night I was there, even at the 9:20 games. They're not easy to get to, folks. They're very late, but he was there. He's dedicated, and he's obviously something that is missed around this Duquesne hockey facility when you are in the locker room. But obviously, he gave a lot of good advice, and Robbie Halyama is with the team now. He is the goalkeepers coach on this team. So he is on the team now, kind of carrying on that legacy in a way that only people that knew Maloney could.
Yeah, and I obviously never met him. This is my first year with the team. But it's just a very inspiring story. You hear like stories all the time. I had an experience with something similar on my high school baseball team with my coach battling ALS, and it's just stories like that can really bring together a team and inspire you, because when somebody's so dedicated to you when they're going through a tough time, it's very inspiring, and it helps. I don't know, it helps bring the team together, and it's just inspiring altogether. But the teddy bear toss itself. After the first Duquesne goal, everybody's going to toss teddy bears onto the ice. Jack, you've been at you were at the teddy bear toss game last year. You had some issues throwing your teddy bear. Can you kind of explain the teddy bear toss, the atmosphere, and then what went wrong on that throw?
I think we'll probably have it in, and we'll cut to it a few times during the broadcast here today. But I did not have the best of throws. I think there was a lot of pressure, man. It was the first time we did it last year, so. When that throw came, obviously you got to make the call, and that's a big part of it. Because if you make a bad call, but you have a good throw, no one's gonna care, right? So I made the call. I thought I nailed it. I don't think I nail every call, so I'm not a narcissist. I know I'm not perfect, and that's because this throw, I got excited. I tried to really get it onto the ice. I did not need that much power, so. It hits the heater, and that thing might be swinging to this day. I don't know how that thing didn't get knocked down, but I'm 0 for 1, Brendan. We have a chance to go a perfect 2 for 2 between the two of us during this game today, and I pray I don't go 0 2 because it's my last chance as a student here, so I got to go out on the bang.
Yeah, we're actually going to cut to the video, the goal and Jack's call and the teddy bear toss from last year right now. All right, and there was the video. Jack, any words?
Maybe. Infamous, maybe. I think there was a lot of good throws, and I'm very happy that the cameraman did not pan right to me, because he could have. The camera would have went that way, and he could have seen that throw just go boing off the top of that heater. But listen, I gave Brendan some advice. If he's going to try and launch it onto the ice, maybe if he's on that left side like usual, make a couple steps down the bleachers, textbook toss. I think I learned through failure, so I might be the perfect person to give advice on that.
I'm thinking either I could go normal and just throw it out onto the ice. I could try and throw it. I could try and throw it into the penalty boxes.
That's a long
which might be tough.
I gave the advice of not hitting the heater.
Yeah, or I could just throw it into one of the benches. Maybe the bench in front of us.
I think that would be hysterical if that happens. I mean,
hit the backup goalie of RMU.
I would be intrigued to see if he threw it right back, and if he
rattle
does, that's great content. We'll get the cameraman on it. Maybe he'll get picked up by Barstool. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Imagine it does happen, and we just spoke it into existence.
Yeah, maybe. Got to tag the right people.
Yes, that's very true.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the CHMA standings. Obviously, we're getting real close. Just this weekend and one more weekend left of CHMA play before we head to the playoffs. You'll see the standings on your screen now. Leading the way, IUP. They've been dominant. They're only one blemish in conference play, and that was to John Carroll, I believe.
That is, and if you look at it, it's IUP and everyone else, really. And you talk about Duquesne and what they've done against IUP. They played them pretty close the last time they went up against them.
They did. That's a game that if you're a Duke, you would say that you should have won that one, maybe.
You won it back.
But, yeah, you want that one back, but they might get their chance again as we'll look in the playoff bracket in a second, but we're going to cover a little bit more of these standings first. Duquesne played very well against IUP, only lost by 1. They were winning for most of that third period, or not most of, they were winning near the end of that third period.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 2 goals from IUP late, stole that one on the road. The first game against IUP, not the greatest for the Dukes, but that was early in conference play. Duquesne has progressed a lot, especially in this second semester. I think it was that first game against Mercyhurst, the last conference game of the first semester. I think that really was where Duquesne started to turn it on and figure out their brand of hockey. And then in the second semester, they were joined by Austin Peterson, who I think has had a big role on this team, just kind of filling in on that third line. And I think it's been really important for Duquesne to have him out there. We'll take another look at the standings here real quick. So John Carroll in the number 2. Duquesne beat them at the Alpha Ice Complex earlier in the season. They'll have another big matchup with them here in the second half, obviously. Kent State, Duquesne faced them in Alpha not that long ago. It was a tough loss. Kent State played very good hockey in that one. Showed why they're the 3 seed. Then West Virginia, they've been a tough match for Duquesne. Robert Morris in the 5. That's who we'll see today. They've got a 400 winning. Yeah, that was a 1-goal loss the last time. We'll cover that game a little bit more later in this show. And then obviously Duquesne and Mercyhurst at the bottom. Mercyhurst are not technically eliminated yet, but it's going to be very difficult. Jack, your thoughts on the standings?
I have to do a little math here and into the tiebreakers, but there's a possibility they are eliminated.
Okay.
Given that they beat them twice, so one would tell me that
it would have to be a massive collapse.
Most points versus teams involved in the tie. Duquesne has the most points, so they're eliminated.
Okay.
All intents and purposes, they are eliminated. Head-to-head points. Duquesne, 2 clean wins against them in regulation, so there's no funny business here. It's 6 versus nothing in that head-to-head category, so they're out. But Duquesne still has that battle to get to the 5 seed possibly, and they have to rely on a RMU loss to get there, because if we're doing math here, you're going to go down a few different avenues. You're looking at the regulation wins. RMU has 4, and say you go 1-1, they got to keep on going down. Here's a simple solution. RMU loses, and you take care of business tomorrow night against the Colonials.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as simple as it gets. I mean, and RMU's playing Kent State. They're playing that third ranked team. So in terms of possibility, it's right there. And we could be looking at this on Sunday. We could be correcting ourselves once we come out of this pregame show here for the broadcast and saying, hey, Duquesne does have a chance to get that 5 seed. And when you get to the playoff bracket, it gets kind of weird there, because it feels like there's a lot of teams that Duquesne has struggled against. So you're kind of picking from a rose with thorns. I mean, they're both going to be brutal matchups for the Dukes.
Yeah, and just know here, we're recording this pregame show on Friday, so before all the Saturday results. So obviously it's airing Sunday prior to the game, but today's Friday, so we don't know the Saturday results. But yeah, you make a good point. Well, it feels like Duquesne was kind of fighting with Mercyhurst all season for that 6th spot. They've been playing such good hockey lately that they've now put themselves in the contention for that 5th spot. And now we're going to take a look at the playoff bracket here, the projected playoff bracket as of now. So you'll see it on your screen here. This is the playoff bracket as of now. So it would have Duquesne slated to play against Kent State, who they recently played. They're 0-2 against Kent State this year. They played them on Halloween and then again recently at the Alpha Ice Complex. But
didn't go well.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So you move to the 5, right? You replace RMU and you flip and you play West Virginia. Assuming West Virginia holds its spot over Kent State, which, if we're looking at it here, that's not a guarantee either. That could flip. But Jack, if you're looking at this, out of West Virginia and Kent State, I think if you're the Dukes, you'd rather play Kent State, no?
I certainly think that might be the case when you look at the 2 times they played West Virginia. 9-2 results at home, and then most recently a 10-1 result on the road. They have gotten, their rear ends handed to them, for lack of better terms. But that's just the way that it's kind of crumbling here. There's not really a chance you can get RMU. So you're basically looking at Kent State or West Virginia. And Kent State, I mean, is it the lack of the lesser of 2 evils? That might be the case here. I think either way, Duquesne's got to bring their A game. I think that when you look at the November 21st matchup, that one's at home. That one's inexcusable. That's not like it's the second game of a weekend on a Saturday. And on the other hand, Duquesne traveling from home this past weekend of games to play West Virginia, they did get killed in that one, but at least you could say, hey, it's a Saturday game. You're just
following a big win.
Yes, exactly. And you're just traveling, right? You're up and down the state of Pittsburgh and West Virginia, the state of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. That's two brutal states to drive through. Just take it from me. But you're definitely going to want to just play your best hockey the last two games. I think the bigger deal is going into the playoffs, playing your best hockey in good form. It doesn't matter who you're going to play. You don't have favorable results against them. So how about you get into a good groove this weekend? You're going to get some rest over Valentine's Day, and then you're back at it for the playoffs that next week. So to kind of finish off strong, gain some confidence, and get yourself set is probably the best advice you can really give this Duquesne team instead of looking at matchups.
Yeah, and the playoffs will take place at the Hope Gas Ice Pavilion in Morgantown, West Virginia, home of the Mountaineers, where Duquesne played last weekend.
So they're not a big fan of Hope Gas Ice Pavilion.
No.
Clearly not.
Doesn't seem that way. But as we kind of talk more about IUP and John Carroll, those 1 and 2s, it's going to be tough for anybody to catch them. They're going to get those buys. IUP is going to get the number 1. John Carroll is going to get the number 2, I would imagine. Although Kent State could catch him.
Kent State could catch John Carroll, but IUP far and away, there's no chance.
And I think
mathematically no chance. So
I think if it's between playing West Virginia and Kent State in the first round, you would rather see Kent State.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that it would be like I wouldn't mind playing John Carroll over either of those two teams as well. Like John Carroll, very strong, but the Dukes have alredy beat them. We'll see that other matchup. We'll have the results obviously soon, but I don't know that I wouldn't want to play John Carroll. And then if the Dukes do get the 6th seed, I don't know that's a terrible thing playing. Now, obviously, IUP is very good this season, but the Dukes have played them strong. The first game at Alpha was close for most of it until IUP pulled away in the third. And that was like kind of the second half of the third period. They pulled away and separated themselves on the scoreboard, but it was a sold-out crowd at IUP 2 weeks ago when Duquesne went there, and they were in that game, arguably should have won it. So I don't think that the Dukes are going to go into Hope Gas Pavilion being afraid of the number 1 seed Crimson Hawks.
No. I mean, they shouldn't. Like you said, the way they've been playing, I think that's also just a mindset that Coach Conrad has to instill into these guys. And whenever you're going on a neutral site type of trip to play any game in any sport, it's kind of, you got to treat it as a business trip.
Yeah, you got to bring your own energy.
You pack to stay a few extra days, and hope that you have to use those clothes. Hope that you have to use those suits, because that means that you're continuing to progress in this tournament. Duquesne actually, they had played IUP in the playoffs not too long ago, and I do believe the game they played before that, if I'm not mistaken, I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, I believe it was West Virginia. I know about a few years ago. It's a few years ago.
Okay.
It was a double overtime game, and they won that one at like 2 a.m. Went on the next day to play the host at the time, IUP, and they fell there. But, I mean, listen, these games can get weird.
Yeah.
Playing on a night that has already been played on by a couple different teams, if you continue to progress, you just got to keep on surviving and advancing. A little Jimmy V type slogan right there.
Yeah, and IUP, when Duquesne beat them, just to touch on this one more time, or no, did not beat them, almost beat them. They were ranked, came close. They were ranked 4th in the nation in the ACHA poll. They've dropped down to 24, but still top 25.
That's what happens when you play the Dukes close.
Yeah,
they take your spot.
Yeah,
they drop you 20.
Duquesne has moved up. So first half of the fall, we were like second to last in the country. They're now in the top 50, which for being at like 91 a month ago and now being in the top 50 just kind of talks to how the Dukes have kind of progressed their play here into the second semester.
I think a lot of leaders have stepped up as well. I thought that a lot of the first half was just guys that you've seen for a couple of years in this program need to step up and play very well. I think Madalo has done that. I think Killian Flock, I think, has a lot of talent, and he's starting to show it here. 7 goals, 14 assists. Same stat line as Alex Goldan. I think a couple of those guys have started to take on a bigger role in the offense. And the offense, when it's bad for Duquesne, it has been bad over the last 3.5 years. But if they can get it going here towards the end of the season, it looks like they have. Watch out.
Yeah, and the Dukes have been able to score. It was not as well as they were scoring better than they were in the first half, obviously, but they weren't scoring bad in the first half. It was kind of the defense that needed to pick it up a little bit, and they have recently for Duquesne, and that's been huge. The first pair of Lloyd and Mooney for Duquesne, I think, has been very steady on the defensive end, and obviously that first line, Tucker, Madalo, and Lombardo, has been very good, kind of setting the tone for the offense, and then I think the addition in the second semester of Peterson has really helped this offense he was that missing piece that they needed in that second and third line, and it's kind of really built that out for
Helps
Duquesne.
to have depth.
It really does, and I think right now they have it, and they're all playing well. It's going to be important that they carry that into the postseason. Let's now move on to a recap of the game versus RMU earlier this year. So for RMU, they got on the board first with a Ragno goal, and then Dom Casali struck back just 40 seconds later for Duquesne, and then it was 2 goals, Morin and Rotrich for RMU in the second period. No goals in the first. Now moving on to the third period, Ben Vodian and Finn Moss got goals for the Dukes early into that period. It was 3-3 into the 18th minute of the third period when RMU got the game-winning goal. It was Ragno with his second. He scored the first and the last goal for RMU. He's going to be our player to watch heading into this one, Corbin Ragno for RMU. But Duquesne, in a tough atmosphere, it was pretty crowded there at RMU. It was a late-night game, I believe, on a Friday.
Yep.
They played strong against RMU, and then they ended up beating John Carroll the next day on a Saturday day game, which was impressive. Yeah. Being able to bounce back after a Friday night game.
Yeah, for sure. That's I mean, definitely impressive. I don't think those Saturday day games usually don't go well for Duquesne, and not just Duquesne, any team in the CHMA. It's a really tough schedule, very quick bounce back. So it's not easy to do, but you're right about Ragno, but also Devin Rawrich with a team high 41 points. He already matched his season high in goals with 21, so anything he's doing right now, he's adding to what would be a career high for him in points and in goals. So I think certainly that two-headed monster is something that Duquesne's defense has to watch out for, but I think Duquesne's defensive core has been pretty good. I think that the past few years of Duquesne hockey, you've had a lot of really good defensemen that have come through the program, and these younger guys have learned from that. So certainly helps out when you have that history and these defensemen starting to come into their own.
Yeah, and one thing I want to note, too, from that game, Duquesne sometimes this season has struggled with allowing penalties. Again, this first game against RMU, no penalties from the Dukes. The only penalty in the game is a Trevor Schmidt holding penalty in the second period. But other than that, it was a pretty clean game between the two. Now, that all depends on who the officials were in that game. Some crews will call things differently than others. Yes. It's the same thing in every sport. But if it plays out that way, and when I was watching the game, it looked pretty clean for the most part. If it plays out that way again, I think that plays to the Dukes' advantage just because of the way that they're playing as a team right now. I think if they can stay off the power play, they have a good shot. Obviously, they've been seeing more success on their own power play offensively, which is nice, and the kill has been good. But obviously, a power play is always a dangerous opportunity for the other team, so you want to stay off the penalty sheet.
Yeah, that would certainly help out Duquesne. And in a game like this against RMU, two pretty evenly matched teams when you look at record and you look at the points and how they're playing so far in the CHMA, every edge you can get is going to be very important to have.
Yeah, and then let's just quickly talk about this upcoming game. The projected goalie, I believe, for Duquesne is Nick Gagne to start in this one. He's played very well for Duquesne. He's a new addition to the team. Jack, you've been covering the team for a while. It's seems like Duquesne's had some goalie stability of late. How important is that for the team?
I think it certainly is. After Halyama had graduated a couple years ago, kind of going through a couple different guys. You do find Ethan Blackburn. My apologies. Shout out if you're watching Ethan. Still follow him on Instagram. He's with Colorado State now. But now you come into this season. With that being said, you got a couple of guys that are vying for that spot. And they're all very worthy of it. But when you get to a certain point in the year, you want to find that number one. And it looks like they have with Gagne, and it helps when he's playing some good hockey and you're able to get a couple of saves and a couple of times where you need him to stand on his head and he's able to. That doesn't just help your team on the scoreboard, it helps them in the momentum side of things. Hopefully being able to build on that on the offensive end, and when Gagne is giving you that, the Dukes are a much tougher team to beat as opposed to when they're not getting the stops from their goalies and they have to rely on the offense, score 7 or 8 goals a game, and that's hard to do at this level.
Yeah, and Dukes fans can expect this ability to stay. Gagne, a sophomore, and then 2 freshmen, Ethan Senzening and Colin Thurnow. We saw Thurnow make his first home start last home game against Mercyhurst. He allowed 2, but got the Dukes to win in that one. And then the last time we saw Senzening on home ice, it was a shutout of Towson off the backs of Gagne's shutout the night before. So obviously great goalie play. And Thurnow, that was his second start. He picked up a win at RIT in Game 2 of that series. Held a strong Tigers offense to 2 goals. So strong play so far out of the freshmen Thurnow and Senzening. And obviously the sophomore Canisius transfer, Nick Gagne, has played very well for the Dukes as well. And their goalie play is what's going to carry them into the playoffs. If they're going to match up with one of these high-powering offenses like a West Virginia, a Kent State, an IUP, or even John Carroll, they're going to need strong goalie play to carry them through the playoffs. And as of now, it's something that we can expect out of the Dukes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think on the other side, Robert Morris, they got a couple of guys they can go with. You got to remember, this is still off of a somewhat back-to-back, not for the Dukes, but for the Robert Morris Colonials. They are on a back-to-back, so they might have to exercise a different option as they play the night before against Kent State at 8:15. That is at RMU, so maybe the not much travel helps them. Yeah. But listen, they got a couple options. They do have Patrick Colburn, who started 14 games for the Colonials. He has the better record, better goals against, a better save percentage, the better stats. However, you do look at Reno Patrick, 10 games, a 3-7 record, but the RMU has a losing record as it is, so it's not too shocking. 4.73 goals against, an 8.86 save percentage, so you could go with him, but obviously if you have your pick of the bunch, you're probably going to go with Colburn. That 6-7 record, 3.07 goals against, and a 9.30 save percentage, so Colburn looks like the guy that Duquesne probably will be facing if RMU has it their way.
And that's who they saw in the last one. The Dukes sent Senzening out against RMU, so we're expecting, obviously Gagne obviously things could change before then, but it will be, if your prediction is correct, it'll be the same goalie for RMU, different goalie for Duquesne. Let's just real quick before we wrap this up, offensively, what do you need to see out of Duquesne to get them a win over RMU today?
I need to see a quick start. I think for sure Duquesne, when they lose games, it's because they fall behind on the scoreboard early, and that's hockey. It's not easy to come back from a deficit, especially when you have RMU, who has offensive weapons deeper than the 2 guys that we discussed. So I do think that you have to get a quick start, and that's your one key. The other key is that, whoever they start, I do believe it'll be Gagne. I do think that you have a Friday and a Sunday. I do think he can still roll with the same guy, but I think that if it is Gagne, if it is Senzening, just get some saves. You got to make some big saves. I know, obviously, you're not expecting them to save every single shot, but you are expecting them to have a couple saves that make you ooh and ah and give that momentum back to the Dukes. And in a game like this, a game that does matter and could be kind of a playoff atmosphere and a playoff preview to the intensity that Duquesne will have to deal with at Hope Gas Ice Pavilion, you probably, you're going to need those saves. And I think that the Duquesne goalies, they can certainly provide it. And if they do, and if Duquesne gets off to that quick start and they go up Heck, even if it is 2-1 at the first intermission, I like the Dukes to play ahead much, much, much more than I like them to play from behind.
Yeah, and we've seen like the first 5 minutes have almost been a kryptonite of Duquesne's entire season. It really hurt them in the 2 West Virginia games, falling behind in that first 5. But we've seen them also kind of come out slow in the first 5, but be able to stay in the game and even let up a goal here and there. But then after that first 5, once they get in their rhythm, they've really been able to put teams away in the second semester. And I'm sort of expecting that to be the case tomorrow. I think I could see West Virginia hopping up 1-0 after the first 5, but then, like you said, going into the first intermission, maybe 2-1 Dukes, and then from there, it'll probably go back and forth, but I like the Dukes' chances to pull that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this game tomorrow, Brendan, or today rather, I think it is a big indicator of where Duquesne sits heading into the playoffs. Not because it's the last game, but that you can kind of read into what the vibe is with this team, what's going right, what's going wrong with a week to go, a week rest into the playoffs of the CHMA.
All right, we're now going to send it to the Alpha Ice Complex in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for today's game. We'll have the starting lines, our keys to the game, and our players to watch when we come back. This is the Duquesne Hockey pregame show. Thank you all for watching.